welcome back with the last part of our running JavaScript in server. So we will continue with implementing web services, but as usual, we'll start with the metaphor. I want you to think of implementing this web services with Node.js and Express as first a library and then second a restaurant again. So for the library, think of URL as the title of the book in the library, and the librarian is the web server. So the web server has different books such as HTML, CSS, etc. that can be served to the um, reader. So Express, if we want to like expand your library into bigger and multiple libraries, the simple handling of this request is not efficient. So you need Express to automatic or immediately shows you kind of like a computer on the screen that allows you to see the location of the books once the customer tell the title. So that's one way to do this, and to understand this. Asynchronous processing. In this case, we implement the asynchronous and processing of Node.js while we're getting the HTML page, for example. The librarian can go on and find assistant or asynchronous process that allow the librarian to find the CSS if the reader asks for those as well. So it's more efficient. We will proceed with this later, but first we'll continue with the providing static files first. Um, Before that, I will provide the folder that I prepared. So here in desktop, I created a folder called web server. You just need to select that folder. And then if you see guys, we will run this server in three different ways. And this is the first way of running this static file. Here's how it looks like. It provides first name, last name, birth date, email. So remember in the previous videos about HTML, this browser automatically shows you this. Okay. It's not, we did not code this. It's just HTML code here. Type date. For any input type date, the browser automatically provides those options to the user. So that's an important thing. So we'll now go to this web structure. So the important thing here is the directory. As you can see, guys, in this static, we have two subdirectories, CSS, styles.css, and index.html. Now, you may be asking, how did I get this package.json? So here's what we've discussed previously, where package.json is initiated when you run npm init. It provides name, version, description, main, in this case start.js, which is the logic that will run when we open our app, and then test if we have test scripts, author, and then license. Now if we delete this, move to recycle bin, and then we run npm init, here's what it looks like. Package name. So you'll be asked for a package name. Let's say web server ret. Kind of dubbed name, right? Version. So 1.0, like 1.0.1. Description. You can put any description. Web server. Entry point. You can put index.js. Test command. Not applicable. Git repository. Not applicable. Keywords. Not applicable. Ret. Not applicable. Sorry, that should be about it. Let's just enter that. Is this okay? So here, URL github.com and ISC license should be an ISC. It should not be not applicable. So yeah, we just need to say yes, and then it provide us this, and then the main is index.js. Um, so index.js, we can create that here in our root folder. Oh, it's created in static. It's not supposed to be created there. Oh, there we go. There. So that's the important thing. It's the structure. When a user enters the URL localhost 8000 static slash index.html in the browser, the web server should read the HTML file and send the HTML code file contains back to the browser. So let's run this index.js. Here. So when we open that file, here's the directory on the desktop only because we didn't run any server yet. It The browser tried to load the CSS. So this is the diagram to better understand it. Once we send the request, it goes first to index h.html, then index.html, it responds with index.html file. And then fourth, the browser request for the styles.css because it's included on our index.html here. And we provide the path as well. And then six, it responds with the styles.css. And that took over the design of our system. So that's what it meant. The HTTP module is usual for providing the web server functionality, the FS module for reading the files, and on top of that, the path module to help us assemble the file paths. So the HTTP module, as we had in the previous video, is required to for us to implement this web service. And then the path, there's a path module, which we will see later. The module that we will use to find the path of the file that we want to use. We can determine this path using the URL property of the request object, which contain exactly the relative path. So I'll provide that example, but here is another diagram that shows how it's the next, it's our next topic, which is the express. So as you can see, guys, this form or this structure is unmaintainable or unsustainable for larger frameworks. In this case, we will proceed with the routing engine, which we have discussed in the previous chapter or in the previous videos that us or allow us to expedite the routes or the finding of the image or files like HTML, CSS. Uh, in our application. So it's like a computer, right, that allows the librarian to see immediately where is the book on the library. So we'll open the Express folder. Let's close this. Hmm. Oh, it hung. Express. There you go, guys. So here's Express, guys. Here's what we've been talking about. First, you define a constant, just like in JavaScript, Express, and then you import the Express. But before that, we need to actually install Express on this app. As you can see in this package.json, we have dependencies Express already. But we can delete this Express. As you can see, guys. And then let's install it again. So my system are kind of sluggish right now here. So if we reload that here, the Express has been should have been installed. So it's not, that's one of the bug of, or not gonna say a bug, but we're not supposed to delete that. Oh, here. So here the Express has been installed again in the package.json dependencies because we did that. So after we did that, this start.js will be able to import that request Express, and then this part are what we're talking about that allow us to find the path of the file on our system. Because remember, guys, the browser do not have access on our file system, or it can't have because it will break the security. Imagine if the browser can access your operate your computer files, it will be devastating. For this, we use Node.js, right, to implement JavaScript on the server side. So this path is what we use to here we import path to find the path on our system, which is here path.join underscore dear name. Here, it's this syntax allow us to find the current directory and then static HTML. So this current directory is like express, and then we find the static directory and then the HTML index. We create that constant path to file. So now this path to file, we can use the .send file to respond to the client. So that's an express specific syntax that response .send file. Here, the path module helps us assemble the file path. We can determine this path using the URL property of the request object, which contains exactly the relative path. So we determine this path using the URL property of the request object. So here is the request object. So in that object, remember guys, object, it can have like complex functions and methods or right and properties. So one of its properties, guys, is a URL property which contains exactly the relative path which we used it in here. So that's what we use. So as you can see, guys, all of our knowledge from HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Node.js, and now Express are coming to each other, or are now becoming one. So we are able now to use all knowledge on top of that in this one file. So there's a lot of happening here. When we use constant consport, we use JavaScript here to define a constant and equal 8,000, and then we close it. So Node.js, what I mean, it's a JavaScript syntax, but since we're using Node.js are able to contact, so it has like a deeper source code. It's able to contact our operating system, which in this case Windows 11, to open a port on 8,000, and then the host, local host on our local host. That's why when we run node start.js, so when we save that, that's automatically allows this node.js server contact our file system. So that's how powerful node.js, and that's how it works in the background. Const app, so we define an app, express. So we can now use this app since we've already defined this concept. Dot use express dot static. And then if the property has the value static slash html slash index.html, that is the user has entered the URL in the address bar in the browser, or the value for which that. So what this means is that when we go to this localhost, it automatically goes to the main directory. So if you do not know the main or the root directory of every website, guys, it's a forward slash. So you go to the forward slash. Now you may be asking, why is that? It's because forward slash, when this is your server Express, and when we go to this the first URL on this app, or the root of this app, it's forward slash, right? Before you go to the index, you need the forward slash, just like this, um, static slash HTML. So localhost slash, right? And then static, you go to the subdirectory slash HTML slash index.html. Before you go here, you need first to start with the slash after localhost 8,000. So, and remember, guys, in the first video of our discussion, the way we access web application is using the URL, right? If you remember what URL, it has protocol, the port number, which is in web browser automatically converted because it automatically detect use HTTPS. So that's 443, automatically use secure communication. So yeah, we'll load the HTML file using the read file function. Here, the read file function is in the previous video. We discussed that, but basically here it is. Let's see. Let's open a folder for that, so that we can um, understand this in details. Here is a long version of index.js. So let's change this script, index.js. So let's discuss this. Here, a long form of the express. Const HTTP, we import HTTP, const fs, we import fs to access the file system, constpath to import path to access the file paths. And then we create an object request handler with the parameter request response, and then we log request URL, and then we use if else statement to show if the static slash HTML um, yeah if this is the index.html, we use this log load HTML file, and then we read this file. So basically, in this, this is a long form, and then else if we request the CSS, and then if we provide an error as well, error or else we respond with 200. So this response that end and then response that right head are integrated into one syntax by Express, which is send file, which we will provide later. And then this server HTTP that request create server request handler. This means we're creating a server constant, and then this we import this from HTTP module of Node, and then we use request handler, which is here this object as a parameter, and then we listen to the port and host, and then yeah, now it's running. So let's see. Let's start this. It's running. So here, this index.js file basically find the index.html. First, it create an object with request and response. So this is the format for Node.js for creating web server or an object for a web server. Request response, and then we show the requested URL. If request that URL, this URL, we got that from path file is equal to slash static index.html or request that URL equals to forward slash. We get the main or root directory. Remember, guys, the forward slash is the the forward slash is the root directory. So index.html and forward slash has the same root directory. And then we create a constant path to file, path that join. So this is node.js specific syntaxes underscore their name to find the path in the operating system. So this has a format. So whenever we're creating this object, we first create the have the directory, and then static, whether it's static, and then the parameters. So it's basically kind of like an object. It's a kind of like it's a parameter of the object, and then we use the function fs that read file path to file since we already have that path to file. So we just define the file path here. So we use fs.read file function, which is we get from this fs module, and then we use the path to file, which is the directory, and then error data. So this is the function format for creating a function for a web server. Error and data. Remember this. So if error, we can respond with the right head here 404, and then we end the error and put in the console error loading HTML file. So this is all Node.js specific. Else response that set header and then we respond with the content type. So this is Node.js specific as well. Set header, and then right head 200 content type text slash HTML. So this has a format, guys. When you study Node.js, it has modules for this. Import FS seems simple and import HTTP seems simple and all this, but it has like complex functions and properties inside it. That's where we import all of this. Right head that end response that end, and here's the format, right? Request response. So if the request and then the response, else if request that URL, here's your URL, we get that property from the path and then we equate it. Or if the request that URL is styles.css, static slash css slash style. So either of these will return the css. So once the system load HTML, the browser will request for the styles.css, and then we log that console path to file, and then this function, and then it has almost the same format, and then so this entire object is an if else object that we use as a parameter on this when we initiated the server. So this is a complicated, as you can see, guys. Your like mind, I mean, I think the one of the simple way to understand this is that to be patient, you need to understand that you're working with machine code or binary 110. Computer actually see that, but this just a language to abstract those 110. So be thankful that we're not writing on that binary numbers, which is 110. So it's actually easier. But Express are actually easier than this, so we will discuss this now. So using the Express.js web framework, here is the diagram for the routing engine. So this Express again provide like a computer in the library, or in this restaurant metaphor, the Node.js is the kitchen, and the okay, and the data. So in this case, we don't have database yet, since we've discussed in the previous videos, the data is actually the ingredients. In here, we don't have the ingredients yet. We're dealing with a string with just index.html, and then express node.js. We don't have MongoDB yet. But to use Express, you must first install it as a local dependency for the project. npm install express command. Express can then be included in the code using the require function. Then using the express call, you can create an object that represents the web application. That is the application object. So this application object is what we've seen in the previous video. So it's just in this video, guys. So here is the app. To make static files like HTML files and CSS files available through the server, we can implement routing, but doing so does not make sense above a certain number of files because implementing all these routes would be too costly. Just just we saw in the previous web server, it's too costly to implement different routings using that. So Express therefore provides a special middleware kind of plugin which can be configured by calling the use method on the application object. So in the application object, which is this app, we can use this method, use method, which is express specific, and then express that static to implement that static file. So it's a middleware. So middleware, it processes it based on the order. So since we use this is the first thing that we will be processed by the middleware. So imagine a computer, whenever you're searching there is a rule that will go first or will be applied first. In this case, here's the rule. App.get forward slash request response. And then it's almost the same with the first one, but it's simpler. Now, in this app, it's the same with the previous app. When we go here, when we implement this, it has the same. So it simplify this the if else using this app.get. When we go, so it's the same. Optionally, so as a first parameter, it expressed that static middleware function is passed the directory whose contents are to be made available as a static resource. So this is express specific that made contents available as static. Optionally, a configuration object is passed as the second parameter, which you can use to configure, for example, which file types should not be considered. So in here, app.use, you can optionally add a comma here and then another configuration object to specify which file is not considered. We can use a middleware function to provide the contents of the static directory accordingly. The files are then available at the following URLs. So here, as you can see guys, even though we have this simple one, we are able to show all the directory that we've previously specified one by one. In here, we only specify index.html because here, Express implement those if-else statements simply. As you can see here, it's the same. So when we go to the CSS, we got the CSS and in HTML on the root directory. In addition, to handle the root route slash, we can use the get method available on the application object. So the get method is available on the app, the cons app. This method enables you to define a corresponding request handler in the form of a function, second parameter, for a route, first parameter that is called by a get request. So here, the route is the first parameter. Uh, so here, the forward slash is the first parameter. And then function is the second parameter. So here's the function, guys. This request and response function. It's actually a function, a callback function. So when the user or when your app receive this request, a forward slash in the form of this HTTP localhost forward slash here, when the app receive that, it send a function, a callback function, respond that send file path to file. This is what I'm saying, guys, when I said that we combine the response that write and the response that end in the classic web server in classic web server. So first we define a path to file, a path to our file so that we can access it, and then we respond with that file, which is in this case const.html. So we just define routes. Before we need to define a lot of steps if the user go to this HTML. Now we just need to define a routes whenever the user are going to the directory. As you can see, the guys, we didn't provide a routes to styles.css because Express automatically did that using that app.use and then app.get methods. We can build the path using the join function from the path module. So this join function is actually from this imports from Node. So this is a combination of Node.js and Express. And then last part of our topic, congratulations guys, processing form data. On the form element, we'll use the method attribute to define the HTTP method and the action attribute to define the URL to be called when the form is submitted. So in the next example, we don't just provide a get method, we will use a post method, post method as well to define a routes. So here we actually got instead of just slash process form, because in this index.html we implement that process dash form. Where the hell is that? So let me check. Here I see. So it's the same CSS, but in here we have a method post. So it's HTML give in attributes, guys. This action and method, it's not an express specific attributes. Uh, we can just use this to utilize express by calling it using post and then process dash form. So in here, so in our example, the relative paths. So let's try this. Let's install Express here because I believe Express is not installed. Yes, it's not installed yet. Let's delete that. That's a bug. So this is the key with Node.js is that instead of just a file, right? Remember in the previous chapter, we work with directories, and on those directory, we have meta information that describe the implementation of that directory. So that's how actually most of web application works. Now we have installed Express here. We are now able to start this and then see the URL if it's working. When we go to Node.js, let's go on here instead. Uh-huh. Localhost. Since we defined that in our cannot get slash form, why is that? Mhm. Cannot get localhost. Let me just. Hmm. So in index.html, here's the post and then start.js. So as you can see, guys, I'm debugging. So a lot of your job as a software engineer is this, like finding why app did not work. So let's move on to the next, but because I think I'm confident those are exercises for you guys to be able to like solve it on your own, to run that process dashboard on your app. So how would you able to define? So let's see. I'll try another one. Maybe guys you have an idea on how to implement this. Let's install dependencies. See? So in that case, we didn't we we might not have the require dependencies to run that. Let's see, and get. So it's let's see. Let's change this code. Let's run this again, guys. And then let's go to that. Cannot get or process form. So that's, oh, I see. So these are actually not, it's just a path, but it's actually used. It's not the reason why we're getting that error. It's not a get request because remember, guys, on HTTP methods, when we go to a URL, we're requesting a get method. But in this case, it's actually designed for post. So it's designed for us to post it here. Form data successfully submitted here, the process dashboard. See, guys, it could have been an exercise for you, but I have solved it for you. That's how important you are to me. Uh, we can also add the name attribute to each input element. So in this case here, name for each input element. We can extend the code for the web server. First, we configure a second piece of middleware via express.url encode, which internally ensures that Express passes the request body accordingly for form requests. So this what enables the post. This app use that URL encoded extended through. So for form, we use this through. Uh, we use the form force if we're only using key value fields like JSON format. So here, this app that use express.url, it's express specific that allows us to request this form. So as you can see, guys, it's simple. If you write this to our web server earlier, it's gonna be long and brain-consuming exercise. We can define another route and the corresponding request handled by the post method. This method is called whenever a post request to the relative URL process dash form is received. So when we click that form earlier, uh, here, when we go back, when we click this form, oh, you see my email now. When we click this form, it send the it triggered that process dash form in HTML here, and then what it says is that it triggered the relative URL path, which is the process dash form, HTTP localhost process dash form. So that's here, that's the path, and then that's callback. After that, it's a callback function. Thanks to the middleware, you can conveniently access the transferred properties or data of the form fields within the request handler. In real-life application, you would process the data in some way, for example, store in a database, and send an HTML back to the client. So that's it, guys, on our chapter. But just for a bonus, I'll provide you the MongoDB here. Here's the diagram, guys. Let's see it in PowerPoint. Here. Here's the diagram. if we have a database. So you have a client browser and then it's routed by Express server. It loads index.html file, serves static file, submits form post, flags form data, and then responds with form that data successfully submitted. With the database, adding storage, client browser to Express server, and then it loads index.html, serves static file, store form data, submits form post, saves data in DB, returns confirmation, response data is saved. So in a like library, if you know the history, if you want to know or in a restaurant metaphor, if you want to know the history of customers, you need database. So that's what database does. Or in library, if you need a previous request of readers, you need database. And that's it, guys. In this chapter, we've discussed the runtime environment Node.js. We've discussed its built-in features and how to install it. We've discussed Express as well on how you can make implementing Node.js web server easier so that you can perform or accept different requests in the backend of your app. And that's it, guys. Thank you for watching and see you on the next video. Peace.